More Americans than ever are expected to reach retirement age in 2025.
And according to the latest Fidelity Investments State of Retirement Planning Study, many are understandably experiencing a reality check. And here with us to discuss what we need to know is Rita Assaf, the Vice President of Retirement Offerings at Fidelity Investments. Hi, Rita. Thanks so much for being with us.
Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
So let's start with those numbers in terms of the number of retirees expected to enter the workforce this year. How much different is it from a typical year?
Well, we're entering a period where we're hitting sort of what we call peak 65. So between last year through 2027, we're going to actually be seeing the peak amount of people turning traditional retirement age of 65. And that is important because it really brings into focus retirement planning and how you actually will live in retirement.
And so tell us a little bit about the retirement planning. What should people be doing now? I know we have a lot of Gen Z people coming into the workforce that probably aren't thinking about retirement, but what are some things that people should just be keeping in mind really at any age in the workforce?
Well, one thing we found that actually is having a retirement income plan or retirement plan is one key to having a successful foundation so that you can transition and live in retirement. And that plan may look different depending on your life stage. So for younger generations, they may be just thinking, okay, what are the right accounts that I should be saving in? So think of a 401k, an IRA, or an HSA. And then how do I make sure that I'm saving enough? And we actually recommend saving about 15% of your pre-tax income into any and all of those retirement accounts that you have available. And one key feature, especially for young generations, is the ability to have if you do have access to a 401k match. So this is where your employer will match you up to a certain percentage in your account. And that is actually a really great way to fund your retirement with help from your employer. And then for those closer to retirement, this is where you really want to get to brass tacks, really thinking through what will your expenses will cover. And one great way to look at your expenses is honestly sit down and look at your credit card statements, your bills today, and use that as your guide. And then figuring out what income sources you'll be using to help cover those expenses. So think of guaranteed income sources that can help with your day-to-day, such like thinking of housing, utilities. And then for anything discretionary, you may want to cover that with sort of anything from savings or investment income. So that way you can cut back without hurting your day-to-day expenses.
Rita, we've got about a minute and a half left. How are Americans faring as far as their retirement goes in those planning years? Does your study give us any indication of how we're doing towards those goals?
Well, our study found that nearly 2/3 of Americans in their planning years have a positive outlook, which is fantastic. But it is down 7% from last year, in part due to the impact of inflation and higher cost of living. And really, Gen X is at the forefront of this drop. Only 53% felt that they'll be able to retire in their own terms. And this is important because they are what's called the first generation that has 401k as their major way to fund retirement. And Gen X is particularly at a moment right now where they're not just saving and preparing for retirement, they're contributing to care for children and aging parents. So there's a lot on their plate that they're managing, and that's what's leading to a bit of this drop.
And how or where can people go for more information to help with this retirement planning? Because it can be pretty overwhelming. There's a lot of things to look at. What do you suggest?
Well, we have great educational sources and tools that you can find at fidelity.com/retirement planning.
Awesome. One last question for you. Is retirement different for those folks retiring today than it was 20 years ago? And conversely, will it be much different in another 20 years?
The view of retirement is definitely shifting. So many are no longer really thinking of retirement as a fixed state and then stopping. People are thinking of different ways to reinvent their retirement years with sort of part-time work or new ways of working. But I would say the biggest difference right now is that pensions will no longer be a primary way to fund retirement. 61% of retirement savers say their savings will come from IRAs, 401ks, and other workplace plans. That is actually a big difference from today's retirees who are saying only about half are actually using these types of savings vehicles because they've had access to pensions.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Rita Assaf from Fidelity Investments, thanks so much for giving us some time here on Good Day.
Thank you for having me.